This is a Fox News alert. Senior-level discussions have begun between the White House and the Department of Justice on finding an alternate site for the 9/11 terror trials. Khalid Sheikh Mohammed and 3 others are set to go on trial in New York City. Senior officials tell Fox that alternate trial locations are being discussed because Congress is almost sure to deny President Obama the funds necessary to conduct the trials. The administration has come under fire for its plan to try the men in the heart of New York, and just yesterday, New York Mayor Michael Bloomberg reversed himself and came out against the plan. We're going to bring you the very latest on this as we get it. And tonight, former Alaska Governor Sarah Palin, right here, right now. She joins us from Wasilla, Alaska. Good evening, Governor.
Good evening, Greta. How are you?
I'm very well, and the topic here in Washington was health care for so many weeks, dominated by health care. Now there's a lot of discussion about jobs. What do you think about what the president is saying about job creation? Is that what you would do?
Well, you know, listening to his speech last night, I was kind of getting some whiplash there. I'd listen to what he was saying, then I'd whip my head down there and read the text to try to figure out what is he actually saying here? How does what he is saying match up to the actions that he's taken thus far? Because the actions that he's taken thus far will not get the jobs created as he says he desires. That speech was so full of contradictions last night. And I know that, you know, afterwards as we analyze it, we're supposed to be, you know, quite diplomatic and analytic and quite gracious in our commentary, but come on, you know, again, so full of contradictions that the American public, I think, listened to the thing and said, how are jobs going to be created when you talk about cap and tax, which is taxing energy, which will prohibit more developments across our nation? When you talk about the second jobs bill, which is a stimulus bill, more spending, which is going to require tax increases to pay for these things. How in the world is that going to help the middle class? How will that help job creation?
All right, so what would you do? Because this is a national epidemic. We have 10% unemployment at its very best. It doesn't count the people who have given up looking for jobs, and it doesn't measure some of the communities that are particularly hard hit, whether it's the state of Michigan or Nevada. I mean, this is really a national epidemic. So had the election been a different result, what would you be doing now differently?
Yeah, it's closer to about 18% of underemployment. That's the rate that they should be using. That's more genuine when he's talking to the public, giving us information. What would I do? I'd get government out of the way and let the private sector grow and thrive and prosper. Keep more of what we are earning with our small businesses. Invest according to our priorities so that we can hire more people. It's quite simple, and it's quite proven to work. That is a free market, free enterprise principle that has helped build this country into the strongest, most prosperous country on the earth. We need to repeat those successes that America has been blessed with and have been plugged into the past. Let's repeat those.
Governor, one of the issues maybe this president doesn't face as much as prior presidents, but is the fact that in Washington it's really, you know, the Democrats and Republicans don't always work together. Now, this president has been fortunate that he's had a Democratic-dominated House and Democratic-dominated Senate, but although he has run into some obstacles there. How do you reach across the aisle? How do you get your political opponent to come and talk to you and discuss things, to work things out? What's the secret, if there is a secret?
Well, what President Obama has made the mistake of doing is pointing fingers at the Republican, at the opposition party, and accuse them of not wanting to work with him when it's proven that, take health care, the Republicans have had common sense solutions that they wanted to bring forward and have considered, with liability reform and erasing state barriers so that there's competition in health care insurers. And the president has pointed fingers and said, they don't want to come to the table and work with us. You can go to healthcare.gop.gov and you can see some of the solutions that have been proposed. So what you don't do is what Obama has been doing. That's pointing fingers, kind of creating more contention and division than needs to be. And that way, gosh, the human nature is a desire to work together and get things done. These elected officials, they know who they're working for. The people who are their bosses, their voters, they sent them there expecting common sense solutions. Just get the job done.
You know what? It's so curious to me is that, I talk to, I rub shoulders with both Republicans and Democrats because I'm here in Washington, the heart of this government. And the Republicans, they tell me, well, the Democrats won't let us participate. The Democrats tell me, well, the Republicans are just obstructionists. I mean, you almost want to pull your hair out because it's so, meanwhile, the unemployment rate is soaring and people are hurting. So I'm trying to think, like, why in the world? I mean, I understand people having different ideas of how to correct things, but it's as though no one's even willing to try to work. I mean, I don't know even where to point the fingers, except for at both of them at this point.
Well, I think last night, to tell you the truth, didn't help. The State of the Union address did not help. There was a lot of lecturing, a lot of finger pointing, and obviously it wasn't just to the opposition party I think, President Obama's mind, but, there's finger pointing to and against the Supreme Court justices who were there in the audience, and to the American public, with kind of a condescending tone there coming from the White House that made us feel like we're not intelligent enough to have understood what the president was trying to explain about health care, when in reality, no, we understand that 1/6 of our economy being enveloped by government is something that we do not want. We don't want government takeover of our health care system. That's what we have been saying, but the president still disconnected, not getting it. Still, Nancy Pelosi today pretty much adamant, saying, no, we're going to cram this thing down your throat anyway, still not listening.
All right. In light of, obviously, in light of your obvious views on the State of the Union, and let me ask you two quick questions. Are you in favor of some health care reform? That's the first part. And then second, what would you do?
I don't know anybody who is not in favor of some kind of health care reform so that we can start getting our hands around the growing costs of health care. I think everybody wants to see that. But we want common sense solutions, Greta. We do want that tort reform. At least put it on the table to discuss. And we do want those lines that are barriers between states to not allow somebody from one state to be able to competitively get out there and look for a better deal on insurance in another state. Why not have those on the table for discussion? And this is my point, is that Republicans have addressed these. They have put these forward, and yet they're not even discussed, not in those backroom deals, not in those closed-door sessions that the Democrats and the lobbyists are engaged in. That's quite discouraging for the American public who is asking for these common sense, these market-oriented, patient-driven and patient-centered solutions to be discussed.
Do you see health care reform as we now know it, this bill, do you see it as dead? And is there anything that could sort of, rescue it? I mean, I know that you're not in the business of telling your opponent how to do things, but what advice would you give the president strategically?
Well, I think Nancy Pelosi was way off base today to come out there with her statement about, yeah, we're going to get this thing through come hell or high water. That just riles up the base of supporters of those who are saying, no, there's better ways to reform.
So would you call her?
Challenges, the problems of health care.
So if you were the president, would you call the speaker and say, tone it down? Is that something that you would suggest that he do?
Absolutely. And if I were the president, I'd say, yeah, you're right. We moved too fast. We did not do a bipartisan approach as I had promised to do. And we're going to back up and we're going to do this right now. But we didn't hear that last night. We didn't hear that again today. So I don't think that it's kind of in their political DNA to even arrive at that point of being able to back up, be gracious about it, be humble about it, be sensible about it. And I'm talking about Reid, Pelosi, and President Obama, and saying, we are going to take a deep breath, we're going to slow down, and we're going to do this right. The common sense, the more simple health care reform measures that Americans are expecting, let's do those first.
All right, Governor, stand by from Wasilla because we'll get right back to you. We have a quick break coming up, and here's a tease. Governor Palin is calling out some women's rights groups. Why? We'll find out in 2 minutes. Plus,